Terracotta Plateau. Body, Moon 1D. System, Ross 834. In the cold depths of the void, and beyond the outer edges of Alliance-controlled space, deep within the Ross 834 system, an orange moon circled quietly around its vibrant blue gas giant. And on that moon, amidst the barren and dust-blown Terracotta Plateau, two men navigated an old and mysterious temple of unknown origin. They were, of course, trespassing in a high-security area, for the terraforming of this moon was still in progress, and as such, a temporary permit had been placed upon the desolate world. No one was supposed to be here. No one was supposed to know of the treasures contained within these alien lands. But secrets are never kept secret for long, and words spread fast, especially when they are influenced by large amounts of credits. The explorers had managed to evade Alliance security, flying cold and silent, under the noses of the newly implemented local system authorities, arriving before any guard sentries could be installed. The stone temple was large and ancient, its walls seemingly carved a millennia ago. Apollo adjusted his maverick suit as he stepped forward into an open chamber, his flashlight illuminating the darkness before them. Dust particles hung suspended in the frozen air.
Wow, look at this.
The communication came through Tin's Remlock helmet.
Yeah, pretty impressive, ain't it? Still haven't found anything yet, though.
Apollo chuckled to himself. There was no doubt in his mind they would find what they were looking for, whatever that may be.
We will do, Tin. Trust me.
Uh-huh.
The loose rubble below them shifted with every footstep as they progressed toward the center of the chamber. They had descended for what felt like an eternity to get to this point, so much so that they could almost feel the pressure upon them. The air around them condensed, heavy, and an eerie sense of foreboding befell them. Movement became harder as they approached an old and crumbling stone altar, as if their bodies were being forced away from something.
What the hell?
What is this? I feel like I'm walking into a hurricane.
The pressure doubled with every step, growing stronger and stronger, the force pushing at them. Apollo lost his footing and slid backwards a little before catching himself. And as he did so, the light from his flashlight caught the glistening surface of an object partially concealed by the altar. The shine blinded him.
There's something there. Can you see it?
No. And can you bloody stop shining your light on that thing? I can't bloody see anything with that in my eyes.
Apollo removed his flashlight from his suit for more control, tilting it downward, and attempted to dig in as hard as he could on the loose rubble below.
Whoa, Emo is gonna love this.
Yeah. But we gotta get to it first, Al,
said Tin, struggling against a force that now felt like a brick wall.
I can almost touch the altar.
Apollo and Tin, now desperately pushing with all their strength against the invisible wall, approached the altar from both sides, desperately trying to touch it, and both agonizingly close. And even though his chest began to feel the pressure, even though his ribs felt like they were close to breaking point, Tin still pushed forward, for he had noticed another object, an object he could not believe he had not yet seen. A small cylindrical disc, dark in color, hidden amidst the shine of their prize, was hovering in the air, above the altar.
What the hell is that thing? Look.
Apollo raised his head, and his eyes eventually caught sight of the hovering disc. Involuntarily, he reached out his arm at the object in confirmation that he had seen it, but the force field pushed his arm backwards, and as it did so, he dropped his flashlight. The torch fell to the ground, smashing its glass, and then strangely, bouncing forward. Apollo stopped moving and allowed the force field to push him back a few meters.
Tin, did you see that?
Tin, still trying desperately to reach the altar, did not answer. He couldn't answer, for his chest and lungs felt close to collapsing.
Tin, for Christ's sakes, will you take a break before you kill yourself?
Tin dropped his head with a sigh, then turned to face Apollo as he too slid backwards to the weakest point of the force field's perimeter.
What? I was almost there, mate.
I just dropped my flashlight.
Okay, sunshine. And do you seriously have to stop me to tell me that?
It bounced forward.
Yeah, so?
So, it bounced forward. Check this out.
Apollo reached down and picked up a handful of gravel. He threw the stones towards the altar, and they flew through the air with ease, colliding with a crumbling stone, before settling back down in slow motion. Tin frowned, baffled.
What the hell?
I think it's an organic field.
Well, what the bloody piss does that mean?
It means it only repulses organic material, living material.
Ah, okay. So, what do we do about that then?
Apollo looked at his flashlight laying on the ground in front of them, the light perfectly illuminating the stone altar.
Well, I would throw my flashlight at it, see if we can knock the thing away or something, but...
Tin nodded his head and reached for his own light.
What are you doing?
Well, I'm gonna throw my flashlight at it.
Don't do that, then we won't have any light at all, will we? Unless you can remember your way through that black maze we just came through to get here. Look around, see what you can find.
And as the two men searched throughout the chamber, a distant roar could be heard overhead. The vibrations rumbled the core of the temple.
That sounds like a ship owl.
I know. Quick, we won't have much time now. All I've got is a couple of stones. You?
Yeah, same. Not very big though. You think it'll work?
Apollo ran back to the edge of the force field.
Only one way to find out.
He threw the smallest stone he had. It missed. He threw another. It missed.
You try.
Alright, mate. I've got this,
said Tin, throwing several of his stones with equal result. But the last stone, the largest one, hit and bounced off the cylindrical disc. The object shifted slightly in the air, but quickly corrected and stabilized itself.
It didn't do anything though.
It did. It moved it. Look.
Apollo stepped forward, picking up his flashlight.
See? I can get closer now. We need a few more hits on that thing and we're golden.
Tin, in a rush of enthusiasm and adrenaline, picked up as many stones as he could and threw them collectively at the disc. And despite Apollo's initial displeasure, several of the stones actually made contact. Now, Apollo did the same, and both of them threw any stone they could find, large or small, until eventually they settled upon throwing the loose rubble beneath their feet. But after a short while, they had successfully pushed the disc back enough for them to reach the altar. Before them now lay the half-exposed gleam of the shiny object. Apollo reached out his hands and lifted the treasure from its socket, holding it high for both to see. It resembled a large crystal egg, extremely light in weight, yet solid through its core.
You see? I told you. All ancient beings love big shiny things to worship.
Tin simply stared, dumbfounded, mesmerized by its angelic glow. Another roar of vengeance flew by overhead, and another rumble of ancient stone vibrated around them. Apollo gently placed the egg within his satchel.
Let's get out of here, quickly.
The temple raiders traced their footsteps back, barely managing to ascend the steep dusty slopes, just about able to perceive their path through the blackness of the interconnecting tunnels that mazed their way out through the underground labyrinth. Eventually they reached the surface, and the crimson light of the terracotta plateau could be seen. But as they approached the secluded entrance to the temple, their senses were assaulted by two problems, one easy, one hard. The light from the setting sun pained their eyes as they left the darkness of the subterranean temple. That was the easy part. But above them, System Authority ships circled, readying to land. That was the hard part.
Oh, pissing shit. What are we gonna do, Al?
Just follow me, quickly, and keep your head down.
Apollo crouched low and ran as fast as he could around the temple walls, out of sight of the landing security craft, and unaware of the other, far more important ship that was presently exposing its landing gear. Minor pangs of relief began to twinge in their stomachs, but soon they would be replaced by dread. For as they turned the final corner, the sight of Apollo's glorious and beloved Great Phantom was transposed by the sight of an Alliance Challenger that had touched down beside it.
They're already in. The cargo ramp's down.
Would Emo have...
No, he wouldn't. But I bet he's waiting desperately for us to arrive. Come on, let's go. Be as quiet as you can.
And with the landing ship safely out of sight behind the temple, and the authority ship before them, seemingly unoccupied, they managed to easily cross the scorched land towards the crate's rear. The sun's light glistened off the stunning azure paint job that Apollo had recently had applied, and he couldn't help but take in its beauty as they approached. Tin's mind was more present on the job at hand, and he reached down to his side to retrieve his manticore tormentor. Choosing to ignore the underside cargo ramp, Apollo fired the softest blast from his jetpack, just enough to reach the ladder to the airlock and carefully climbed aboard. Once inside, they slowly, silently made their way to the cargo bay. And upon arriving, they poked their head over the railing to view the bodies that stood below.
There's Emo, by the SRV.
Yeah, looks like 2 guards.
How many does a Challenger hold?
Well, cockpit normally holds 2 seats, but who knows how many more inside.
Why would there be elsewhere, though? They're just detaining him, waiting for us to turn up. Let's assume that's it. If not, then we can take the remainders as we come across them.
Okay, so what are we going to do then?
Oh, they're facing the ramp, waiting for us to walk up. Let's sneak down behind them and knock them cold. No killing today, though, Tin. These are innocents, and we don't need the heat.
Of course, mate. Let's do this.
Emo simply stood there. The 6'2", muscle-bound hulk loomed over the 2 guards that were presently holding him at gunpoint. He said nothing. He showed no emotion.
Listen here, pal. Just tell us where your friends are, will ya? You gotta say something.
How did you even know about this place, big fella?
Still nothing. No expression change. No noise. He simply stared.
Do you think this guy is okay?
Beats me, pal. But I think we can rest assured we ain't getting anything from him.
And then, seemingly for no reason at all, Emo groaned. Although it was completely unknown what that groan meant. The only thing the guards knew was that immediately after the groan, they felt an excruciating pain on the back of their heads, before their worlds turned to black. Tin put away his tormentor.
You alright there, Emo? That's lovely, Emo.
Quickly, let's get these men out.
Now the 3 men wasted no time as they picked up the guards one by one, traversed the cargo ramp, and placed their unconscious bodies on the dusty surface of the plateau. And as they placed the second guard down, Tin noticed more guards coming around the temple walls, searching the grounds.
Oh shit, time to go.
Apollo rushed back to the cockpit and donned the controls, firing up the engines as the other 2 entered.
Ready?
Let's get out of here.
So long, suckers.
As the Phantom rose from the land in a flurry of dust and gravel and punctured its way through the planet's atmosphere. Now, safely on their way, Apollo turned to Emo, retrieving the crystal egg from his satchel.
Hey, Emo, look at this.
He threw the shiny object towards his loyal friend. Emo may have been heart-thumpingly panicked that he could potentially drop the priceless treasure, but that's something that nobody would ever know. He just stared at the thing in his hands and then placed it down upon the side. Apollo smiled to himself.
I knew you'd like it, Emo. I just knew it.
And as the Phantom's long blue line of thrusters disappeared into the blackness of space, one man looked up to the elusive prize he was seemingly forever chasing. A smile stretched across his face, some form of appreciation for the daring raid he had just witnessed. But that smile was quickly replaced with a dark and deeply aggravated frown. The man turned to walk back to the now empty temple, and under his breath, he muttered,
One day, Apollo. One day.
Tani Mines Outpost. Orbiting body, Nakoma 3. System, Nakoma. Silently lurking above its high metal content world, the relatively quiet outpost of Tani Mines was an attraction to those who preferred the less frequented areas of space. Presently, a great Phantom dropped from Supercruise and approached hailing distance before requesting docking permission. The request was eventually accepted, and Apollo guided his vessel to the designated landing pad.
Why don't you ever use the auto-dock, Al?
Apollo shrugged as a smile emerged on his face.
I don't like to rely on it. One day I might need it, and then what? I panic and struggle and probably crash. Especially if it involves flying through one of those bloody station mailboxes.
Yeah, I guess so.
Tin swiveled in his seat and cast a glance back across the cockpit to Emo.
Or maybe you're just some kind of control freak, eh?
Emo, as always, remained completely emotionless, never once taking his eyes from the outpost in front of them. Tin shook his head and turned his attention back to Apollo.
Yeah, maybe,
said Apollo, concentrating on exposing the landing gear. The crate touched down, the pad shuddered loudly, and descended into the darkness of the station's underbelly, and the crew readied for departure. The interior of the tiny mines left something to be desired. It was cold, dirty, and had definitely seen mildly better days. But at least the clientele was decent, which was to say they were to be held in a similarly low regard. The crew walked past the forever lonesome soul that occupied the Apex taxi rank and descended the stairs towards the bar. Tin pointed over an empty area.
Me and Emo will grab a table, yeah?
Oh sure, I'll get the drinks again then, yeah?
Oh, that'll be lovely. Cheers, Al.
Tin sat down next to Emo. The chairs were hard and uncomfortable, but a few drinks would soon rectify that. For now, he had more pressing issues.
This damn suit. I don't think it fits right, do you?
Emo stared at him. His eyes briefly regarded Tin's new suit, but he said nothing.
I don't think so either, Emo, my boy.
Apollo walked through the slightly out-of-place archway that appeared to mark some form of entrance to a bar. It had become somewhat of a tradition for him to do so. Some folks were standing, some sitting, all talking of their adventures in space. He stopped and listened to the large and brightly lit advertisements that flickered across the screens above him and smiled. He felt safe again now, at home even, and with a sigh of relief, he approached the ever-attentive barkeeper. After a few minutes, Apollo sat down next to Emo and distributed the drinks around the table.
What are you moaning about now, Tin?
It's this bloody Mav suit. I upgraded it to level 3, didn't I? But now, it just don't bloody sit right.
Looks fine to me.
Looks fine to me. It weighs a bit more too,
said Tin, swallowing almost half of his drink.
Yeah, well, it's very expensive. And not too many people have one around here either, so you should feel privileged. How did you afford that anyway?
Well, I may have won a few more poker games.
You mean cheated in a few poker games?
Tin smiled, but failed to answer.
Listen, I might have to pay a little visit to that Pioneer Supplies up there. See if they can adjust it somehow. Probably cost me a small fortune, though.
A moment of silence passed as they each dwelled on their current personal problems before they were suddenly shocked back into reality by Emo slamming his empty glass down on the table.
You alright there, sunshine?
Jesus Christ, Emo, do you have to do that? No, I take it that means you want another drink then.
Emo turned to look at his friend, and Apollo assumed that he was probably smiling.
Oh, am I the only one who buys drinks around here?
Emo released another grunt, while Tin pretended to be preoccupied by some other newly found problem with his suit.
Right, I guess that's a yes then,
said Apollo, rising from his seat and heading back to the bar for the second time. Tin finished his mock suit adjustments and offered Emo a knowing smile and shared a giggle. At least, he thought it was shared. At the bar, Apollo briefly regarded the holographic screen above the bartender's head. The newscaster was currently telling his audience of the latest terror group to evolve from humanity's pit of evil.
I can inform you now that this is a separatist group, spawned from the already secretive Sublime Order. After speaking with the Order themselves today, they strongly put it to me that they were in no way associated with this terrorist group, nor did they share their feelings or intentions in the matter.
Apollo shook his head and leaned over the bar to order another round. But as he did so, a hand rested upon his shoulder, and he turned to see the unmistakable uniform of an Alliance agent.
Can I help you?
The agent shifted his eyes from left to right. Is there somewhere a little more private we can talk? Apollo frowned, but curiosity had already captured him.
Yeah, sure. Follow me.
This very brief and very minor exchange had not gone unnoticed, and Tin rose from his seat almost immediately. But Apollo had offered a nod that suggested to him that it was okay, for now. Apollo led the agent away from the bar and around a dark corner where it seemed most of the shady conversations took place in any given station, next to the ominous and smoky shade of the impressively sized ventilation fan. The blades spliced the light as it cast through the cylindrical system, and the black shadow intermittently danced over their faces as they spoke.
I'll get straight to the point.
Please do.
Have you heard of the Achilles Corporation?
Yeah, who hasn't? Their adverts are plastered over every station you dock at. Although, I've never actually seen them.
The agent shifted again as he spoke. This time, though, he was far more direct and far more serious. The Achilles Corporation, in their quest for power and to be above their rival Sirius Corps, have sent a Black Cell intelligence group to search for your old friend.
My old friend?
A leading expert on ancient mythology, in particular Greek mythology, and I suppose historical alien interventions.
Oh, that old friend.
Indeed. Well, he apparently possesses a supposed map of Titan and its lost underwater city.
Yeah, he probably thinks it's Atlantis or something.
Unlikely. We've already found that.
What?
We need you to track down your friend and retrieve that map before they do.
Whoa. Let's back up a bit here. You found Atlantis?
Can we please focus on the matter at hand?
Okay, whatever. So you want me to chase down some historical Greek myth from an acquaintance of mine? Not friend, acquaintance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are you mad? I think we've moved on from those times, haven't we?
Since when? What century has ever existed where we had the potential to unlock the secrets of the mythological universe? Don't you think all these historical references to the gods and higher beings is a bit more than a mere coincidence? All those ancient tribes and civilizations documenting their visitations. Now we can read into the true meaning of things.
Yeah.
Now we have the technology to get there.
Yeah, we have for some time, pal. And what have we found?
You mean aside from the Thargoids and the mysterious Guardians, and who knows what other secrets are out there? Have you found Raxla yet?
Of course I haven't. Nobody has. Have they?
Does that mean it's not out there, though? Apollo sighed as he adjusted his stance.
So you want me to chase after what? A blimmin' sea god's trident?
Just get the map, and we'll go from there.
Well, if Achilles Corp were searching for that city, then it's probably because it's believed to be the location of Neptune's trident.
So you know more than you are letting on, eh? But do you know what a trident is? Apollo stared back at the man as fan-blade shadows swept across his face. He held a genuinely blank expression. The agent continued. They believe a great weapon is buried somewhere within that city. And the Achilles Corps believe that if they acquire it, they can rule man's empire in the stars. The map is the key to finding the lost city, and more specifically, the secret chamber in which the suspected trident is buried. Apollo eyed the Alliance agent. The man was stern, he spoke with authority, and he likely had the means to arrest him on the spot.
Do I have a choice in this?
The agent looked back at the table, where two rugged-looking men eyed his every move. Not really. We should just arrest you and your ragtag crew for prize. But not this. For now, you are classed as a petty criminal. Known, but not a priority. The Alliance officially authorizes you to recover the trident before the Achilles do, and return it to the Alioth system authorities, where it will remain under our protection. If you decline, we'll up the status so that every authority and every bounty hunter in the next 10 systems will track you down for the price we will place on your head. Apollo smirked as the agent tilted his hat to signal the end of the conversation and promptly walked away. And on his way back to break the exciting news to his crew, he lifted his head to notice that the newscaster had now been interrupted by the blurred image of a black-robed man.
There is no shadow division here. We are the Sublime Order. Our fathers took an oath to protect interstellar trade among humanity. They were the old order. We are the new order. And we desire an end to this war and the beginning of a new chapter. A true interspecies interstellar trade.
Apollo frowned and shook his head at the clearly insane ramblings of this madman. By the time he reached the table, the sorry-looking men that he considered his crew were currently amusing themselves by testing Tin's shield. Emo had just finished a volley of punches and was now throwing random objects that glimmered as they bounced off the Maverick suit and fell to the ground. Apollo sat down, a complex and confused look upon his face.
Oh dear. What's new then, boss?
Said Tin, realizing that something wasn't right. Apollo looked pensive for a while, not moving, seemingly deep in thought, before eventually saying,
Get yourselves ready. We'll leave tomorrow morning.
Okay then.
We got to go and see an old friend about an even older dog.
Tin, seeing the look that remained on Apollo's face, refrained from asking any further questions. Just yet, at least. Emo, as always, silently and loyally obliged. And that exchange had put an end to the drinks, an end to the celebrations, and signaled the start of something new. The crew promptly left the table, traversed the station bar, and walked silently towards the rear elevators, heading back to their ship for a bit more privacy and a lot more sleep. As the elevator doors closed and the soothing music rained down upon them, and away from prying ears, Apollo spoke.
We have ourselves a new adventure, boys. We're heading to Mars.
Tin and Emo briefly eyed each other as a smile slowly emerged on Tin's face, as it did for Emo. Possibly. Donaldson Starport, orbiting body 5B, system Alioth. Alliance Interpol detective Hal Selvin stood patiently outside the glass office doors of his superior. His dark khaki trousers and green puffer jacket, combined with his shiny black boots and perfectly worn cap, looked immaculate. A man dedicated to his job, dedicated to the hunt for that one target that continued to elude him, along with the many other low-down, dirty black market traders, commonly referred to in the industry as trade rats, that crossed his path. But such dedication comes at a cost, and is the sole reason why his beloved daughter lives with his divorced wife. He was stern, strict, loved by most, but unbearable to others. Strangely, the relationship he had with Apollo and his crew was one of the longest he had held. It was a cat-and-mouse chase that had spread across the majority of the bubble and sometimes beyond. And it had come so tantalizingly close to ending on so many occasions, the latest being the daring temple raid on the Terracotta Plateau, where once again he had found out too late and could only watch as Apollo's ship lifted into the black and escaped once more. "Come in," said a voice from behind the glass. Hal entered the room and stood to attention in front of the desk. "Still chasing those trade rats, Hal?"
Yes, sir.
"You know, your recent and highly unpopular public takedown has put our Ratcatchers unit into the public eye again, as an archaic and vigilante unit."
I assume that's why I'm here, sir.
Strangely, no. I need to talk to you about Apollo. Unless by some miracle you've caught him already.
Hal's eyes widened. Not yet, sir, but I will get him.
Indeed. Listen, it seems the Alliance, in all their wisdom, have decided to work with him.
What, sir?
Yes, they've gone above us to the powers that be, and have tasked him with retrieving an item of considerable interest, it appears.
That's... I can't believe that, sir.
Yes, you and me both, son. So that's where you come in. We need to keep an eye on that crew, and that means we need to know their location and where they're going to be before they do.
I'll get him, sir. Just tell me where.
We don't know where he is. They found him, God knows how, but let's not forget their numbers and their ways are far greater than ours. Either way, they're not going to hand us any freebies.
Maybe I can reach out. I know a few—
Slow down, son. Now, don't get me wrong. That is what I'm asking. But I'm also telling you we need patience. I want you to track him down, follow him, and capture him once and for all, but only after he has the item. Understood?
Understood, sir.
I don't care if he hands it back to the Alliance agents. We can do that ourselves. As long as we have Apollo and the item, we can finish this and look good at the same time.
Understood, sir.
Hal repeated, saluting his superior and leaving the office. And as he walked away, a smile stretched across his face. This was it. This was his moment. But he wasn't sure just yet whether he would follow the instructions in the given order. Planet: Mars. Location: Siona Ridge Mountain Range. System: Sol. Tin slowly rose from his alcohol-induced slumber, his head groggy, his mouth dry. The air in his cabin smelt rusty and stale. In the background, a screen that had apparently been left on all night was currently displaying the local system sports news, highlights of a recent SRV race. He pushed his blanket away and stretched, and as he did so, the coverage suddenly switched to a breaking story. Another message from the disturbed terrorist cell, calling themselves the Sublime Order.
That is what this is about. Cleansing. We will rid humanity of the red tape. The social and political protocols that keep us locked up in this archaic system. We will break down the walls our governments have erected. We will break through the closed mentality of the powers that be, and we will succeed in our mission.
Tin switched the madman off, left his quarters and made his way through to the cockpit.
Good morning, Emo.
Apollo turned to acknowledge his friend's presence and gestured.
Ah, finally, he hath awoken.
Tin let out a half smile as he looked past Apollo to the red ball that was rapidly growing in size.
Nearly there, then?
Yeah, we'll be touching down in a few minutes. You best get comfy.
The crew members strapped themselves in and awaited the pleasing boom and subsequent feel of the ship's glide. Another loud bang echoed through the ship as the glide completed, and Tin rose once more to see the northern mountains of Mars before them.
You still know where you're going, then?
Yeah, somehow I still had his coordinates stored in the nav system. Go figure.
So, what is your history with this guy, then?
Not much, really. Like I said, he wasn't so much a friend, but someone I got involved with on a few treasure hunts. It's exciting times, though.
So what happened?
Well, his daughter happened. That's when things went a bit sour after that.
Say no more, my friend.
Yeah. Last I heard, he's a bit of a recluse now. Lives on the outskirts of town.
Well, hopefully he's ready to talk.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll have to make him talk, right?
Apollo didn't answer. He hoped for the best, but as always, expected the worst. Outside the remote and rather shabby-looking construction that apparently served as the acquaintance's abode, the trio stood. The building, comprising mostly of brick but then patched with woodwork and other sources of material, appeared to have seen better days.
Nice place,
said Tin, as they approached the door and gently knocked. Emo grunted. A cold wind howled over the nearby mountain range and buffeted the building as it made its way down to the nearby town. The sheets of tarpaulin that were adorned to the house in various places were in a constant state of motion. And after a short while, the door opened, and the face of a pale yet beautiful woman appeared before them. Helen immediately threw the door closed, but Tin had reacted first, thrusting his foot between the door and preventing it from closing.
Sorry, love. This ain't a social visit.
Helen backed away, a grimace of fear now covering her brow.
It's okay. I won't bother you. I just need to talk to him.
He's not well. He's sick. Dying.
Apollo lowered his head, genuinely saddened by the news.
I need to see him, Helen.
And with a sigh, she led them through to a makeshift bed toward the rear of the kitchen. A fire roared close by, and Helen turned to gather some glasses.
I suppose you'll be wanting drinks then.
Oh, that'll be a lovely idea,
said Tin. Helen frowned at the man and his disgusting accent. Upon noticing the men enter the room, Killian lifted his head, and a long-lost smile appeared. Apollo knelt down by the bedside.
Oh, Apollo. I deemed I would never have the pleasure again.
Neither did I, old friend,
said Apollo, feeling the need to change his title back from acquaintance to friend once more.
How the devil are you?
I'm fine. Plodding along as usual. I wish I could say the same for you.
Yes. I appear to have been struck down in my prime,
said Killian with a chuckle. Apollo joined in the laughter.
Well, if you can call being in your 70s prime, then we're all doomed.
Oh, nevertheless, it is good to see you, Apollo. Tell me, what brings you here? Another adventure, I presume.
Apollo shifted. He was so used to talking discreetly in private areas that he carried a sense of paranoia with him wherever he went, even in a secluded shack on the mountains of Mars.
I'm looking for the trident.
Killian's eyes widened.
I remember you saying about it once. You had a map. Obviously, I thought it was nonsense at the time, but it seems you're a right, old friend.
The trident.
The very one. The Alliance are after it. Achilles Corp are after it. It seems everyone's after it, come to think of it.
To be young again. I wish I could join you, but I stopped looking for that thing a long time ago.
Apollo nodded.
Let me carry on your quest, old friend.
Yes.
I will gladly pay for it.
Killian chuckled to himself between coughs.
I have no use for money now, Apollo. This is something I never had the chance to search for.
The dying man motioned for his daughter to retrieve an old box, and she reluctantly obeyed, placing the object on the bed. Killian opened it.
I want you to have this,
he said, passing Apollo a very old-looking chain pendant.
I bought this one day, long ago, from an off-world collector. Some crazy-looking man who reckoned he was immortal. Anyway, you will do well to hold on to this dearly, for if I am right about this, you may need it. And you will know when to use it.
Apollo examined the pendant. Engraved on the back, it had strange numbers, or maybe it was scripture. Apollo couldn't tell. He placed it around his neck regardless.
Thank you.
Killian nodded as he unraveled an ancient map that contained a reference of stars, moons, and a more precise drawing of an unknown location, surrounded by droplets of water.
Looks like Titan to me, but then that always confused me. The map being on Titan and all. But you're a clever man. You can figure it out. I wish you the best of luck, Apollo.
Killian laid his head down, tiring from the conversation.
Thank you, old friend. I really wish you well,
said Apollo, rising to leave. And as he did so, the daughter pulled him to one side by the door.
If you're gonna do this, you should know that this is only half of the map. He's old and forgetful. I was meant to take all his stuff to storage, but luckily this was in another box. You will need the other half of the map, which is...
Suddenly, the door burst open with a clatter of broken wood and a mist of disturbed dust from outside. And a gruff voice filled the room.
Looks like we're both working the same case, kid.
Apollo spun round to face the all-too-familiar voice.
Oh, don't call me Kid, Quaid.
Quaid laughed. As he examined the room, his three henchmen spread out behind him.
You thought the agency would limit their chances with just one traitor, huh?
Seemed unlikely, but I imagined I had the best chance.
Of course you did, kid. That's why I followed you.
Tin and Emo shed a look of disgust, annoyed that they had not heard the men approaching, infuriated that they were in this position, helpless to act, staring down the barrel of a Manticore Intimidator, and it was certainly living up to its name.
Give me the map, kid.
Apollo hesitated a moment, but any actions would be futile, and with a sigh, he handed it over. Quaid snatched the map and pocketed the fragile document.
Cheers, kiddo. It's been a pleasure crossing paths with you again. We'll be off for now. And don't bother doing anything stupid. You know me better than that, don't you now?
and as quickly as they had arrived, Quaid and his men disappeared from sight. Tin smacked his fists together.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Isn't that lovely? Now he's got the bloody map.
Apollo nodded.
Only half of it, and I got a pretty good look at it.
He turned to face Killian's daughter.
Anyway, you were saying?
Helen sighed. It was one of relief, for this entire encounter had come and passed without any danger or harm. But it need never have happened at all if Apollo had simply not shown up.
The storage facility, near town. It's next to the church. Locker 8B. Code is 1887. Can you just go now, please?
Apollo hung his head low. A genuine look of sorrow gripped his features.
I'm sorry, Helen.
Just go, please.
Apollo turned and headed for the door. Tin saluted Helen for some reason before leaving, and Emo did what Emo always does and released a nondescript grunt. Tanny Mine's outpost. Orbiting body, Nakoma 3. System, Nakoma. Detective Hal Salvin made his way through the grimy and cold levels of the Tanny Mine's outpost. He was following a tip from a well-known and respected informant. Apollo and his crew of trade rats had been seen at this location. It wasn't much to go on, and he had followed so many of these leads that he couldn't quite remember the exact number, but still, he had to see them all through. Surely the laws of probability meant that one day he would be there, and they would finally meet. "Can I help, sir?" said the barkeeper. Hal held up a photo of his target. "I'm looking for Apollo Sky." The barkeep smiled. "Never heard of him." But Hal was well versed in the ways of the trade rats, and he also knew that things could be said without actually being said. "Give me a shot of Lavian brandy." The barkeep followed the orders and was generously paid for his efforts. Hal continued. "I'm not asking if you've seen him, but maybe someone around here could have overheard where he was headed." "Afraid not, sir. People don't talk much around here, but the fans do hear whispers, and maybe an old acquaintance would be the best person to talk to." Hal nodded. He didn't quite know what that meant, but he guessed that was all he would be getting. "Thanks for the drink," he said, pushing the still full glass to one side and walking away. And as he made his way back to his Alliance Challenger, his mind raced over the many documents and bios he had read on Apollo. An old acquaintance. Maybe there was someone that did spring to mind after all. Planet, Mars. Location, Siona Ridge Mountain Range. System, Sol. The outer districts of downtown Siona left a bitter taste in one's mouth. The air seemed slightly putrid, a direct result of the city's industrial center that was, for some reason, erected downwind from the towering mountain range. The people here walked with their heads down, their faces void of any emotion or happiness. Most walked in silence, alone, heading to wherever it was they worked to fulfill their unwanted tasks at their unwanted jobs, before heading home to rest in an equally unfulfilling home life. Apollo, Tin, and Emo approached the church. It was their only guidance from Helen's directions. The building retained an old-world, Earth-like Gothic architecture. The walls in stone, the spire looked magnificent against the ominous blue-red sky. And sure enough, adjacent to that building was the storage unit. A few businessmen briskly walked past, heading to the Siona Trade Building that loomed over the other two, much smaller buildings.
"Well, I guess this must be it then."
Yeah, it looks like it. Especially as it says Mars High Storage Containers in big neon letters.
Emo grunted, which was presumably an attempt at laughter. Tin shrugged and nudged Apollo.
Yeah, all right, sunshine. You know what I mean. Come on, let's just get this done with, yeah?
But as they took a step forward, two more businessmen brushed past them on their way to the large trade building. Again, their heads down, faces void of emotion.
Oi, what's it, pal? Bloody hell. These pissing suits have less emotions than you, Emo.
Emo ignored the comment and continued to walk toward the storage unit, his head down, his face void of emotion.
Hey, you still got the code, Al?
Yep.
Apollo looked down at the blurred markings he had written on the palm of his hand.
Locker 8B, code is 1887. But I think we should...
He stuttered, distracted as he briefly looked up to see the faintest flash that suddenly lit the bluish-red sky above the church.
What the hell was that?
Said Tin, moments before his ears were assaulted by the shockwave that hit them all. As the Siona trade building exploded before their very eyes, the heat was instantly upon them, carried on the air as it rushed over their bodies. A cloud of dust and smoke covered the streets and filled the atmosphere around them, people rushing in every direction, their faces now filled with emotion, filled with terror, as they dropped their briefcases, dropped their unimportant files, and ran for their lives, some screaming, some on fire, most bloody. And between the slightest of gaps, they witnessed the flame-ridden building crumble and topple over, collapsing upon the storage unit, and leaving nothing but rubble in its wake. A second shockwave hit them as the building collapsed, but this time, the trio just stood there, shaking their heads in disbelief.
Unbelievable,
said Apollo, staring in disbelief at the completely unaffected church that stood gracefully amidst the dust as the distant sun's rays shone through the chaos around it.
Oh, pissing hell. What are we going to do now, Al?
Suddenly, a ship passed by overhead, flying low at moderate speed, and as it passed, it released its propaganda. The posters fell like rain and covered the already littered streets. Its message was the same as that heard coming from the ship's tannoy speaker system.
Cleansing has begun. Fear not. We will rid humanity of the red tape. The social and political protocols that keep us locked up in this archaic system. We will break down the walls our governments have erected. We will break through the closed mentality of the powers that be, and we will succeed in our mission. Behold a new chapter of the Sublime Order. Prepare for a true interspecies interstellar trade.
In the darkening hours that followed, the crew had helped as many as they could, their fingers cut and bloody from digging away at the rubble, rescuing whoever they could find, helping wherever it was needed, until the authorities arrived, and it was time to slip away. Back at the ship, they sat quietly around a rather expensive bottle of Harmer Silver Sea Rum, their minds elsewhere, their spirits downtrodden. Tin uncrumpled one of the propaganda flyers that had fallen after the explosion. The deranged image of the Sublime Order's latest offspring stared back at him.
Look at this bloody guy. Who the hell does he think he is anyway? Bloody nutjobs.
Apollo sighed.
There's always going to be some crazy out there who thinks he's making an impact on the world.
Making a dent more like.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Reckons we need to start trading with the bloody Fargoids,
said Tin, reading through the printed text.
Don't you know there's a bloody war going on?
A moment of silence followed, and then, for some reason, a thought sparked in Tin's head. A flash of the ship's name, painted in chipped white across the side of the Phantom.
You know, Al, you never explained why your ship is called the Bunty.
Apollo sighed as he lifted his head.
Ah, well, it was meant to be the Bounty, but the guy buggered it up, didn't he? Left out a letter or misread it or something. Anyway, I kind of liked it, so I said he didn't have to do it again if he knocked the price down a bit, you know. And here we are.
Wait, you actually paid the man?
Yeah, of course I did. I mean, it may have been fake credits, but I never heard anything back from him, so I guess it worked, huh?
Emo shifted his weight, briefly eyeing first Apollo, then Tin, before taking another sip of his rum.
Yeah, you're right, Emo. We should be thinking about what to do next.
Yeah, sorry, Emo, old boy. Okay then. So what are we going to do next?
And after a brief moment of thought, Apollo said,
To hell with it. All we know is what we saw on the map. And the map said Titan.
Well, yeah, but that crazy old man said he didn't think it was Titan.
Like I said, it's all we've got. And we've got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, right. I guess so.
Look, mate, I feel bad, okay? I feel like I've let you all down. We had the sodding map in our hands before Quaid turned up. We should have been in and out like we always are. But things got...
Don't beat yourself up, Al. It's not your fault.
Yeah. All I know is if we don't succeed, then we're all very likely going to the nearest bloody megaship detention centre, and I'm in no rush to visit one of those again.
Nah, that ain't gonna happen, mate. Come on, let's get moving then. Titan it is, eh?
Apollo looked down and fingered his necklace. The pendant shimmered in the light. When he had taken it from Killian, it was the wrong way up, and now that it was hanging from his neck, the inscriptions suddenly became clear. He knew these symbols. Killian had taught him a long time ago, and he realized that they depicted water. That much was obvious, and the green ball next to it surely signified a planet that Killian had presumed was Titan due to the green hue of its atmosphere. But green along with blue, and especially mixed together, are universally associated with water, a planet full of water, although the wording, once translated, left a further mystery to be solved. But suddenly, it all seemed clear. Beneath the scars the bubble lies, beware to pierce with those 3 eyes. Apollo looked up and grabbed Emo's arms with thrilling excitement running through his veins.
Killian was right. It's not Titan. Why would it be Titan? It's Europa.
Oh, well, I'll be. How the hell did you figure that out?
The pendant. I've been looking at it for some time and, well, it makes sense. This is an ancient time we're talking about, right? Only the Sol system would have been traversable back then. A ball of water. Well, yeah, there's a few that we know of now, but back then there was one famous one. Europa. And what is Europa covered with? The ice. It's full of cracks, scars, and beneath those scars, beneath that layer of ice, is a whole ball of water. I mean, where else would a bloody sea god be?
Right. Okay then.
It also says something about a bubble and 3 eyes, but I guess we'll figure that out on the way, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Sure. That seems reasonable.
Tin's sarcasm forced a frown upon his forehead as he stared at Emo for help. But before any further conversation could take place, Apollo was already running back to the controls.
Let's go!
Right then. I guess we're off again, eh, Emo? Come on, old pal. Let's join our crazy captain.
Hal Selvin stood in disbelief as he stared at the sheer volume of chaos before him. A brief thought crossed his mind that this was either directly or indirectly related to the men he was pursuing. But that thought was quickly put to bed, for Apollo and his crew were good men. Sure, they were black market traders, in for a quick credit, and held no regard for the rules or laws of whatever backwater they were currently gracing with their presence. But they would never knowingly cause harm upon innocents, and they would certainly not wish this level of violence and destruction upon anyone. No, this was something else, something far more sinister, and his suspicions were confirmed as he walked through the dusty air towards the rubble and examined the area. The flies blew past him, some on fire. The eyes of the maniac printed upon them seemed to follow his moves. Suddenly a cry forced its way through the noise in his brain, demanding urgent attention. He looked over to a nearby pile of rubble. The bricks seemed to be moving. Hal rushed over to the source of the crying and fell to his knees.
It's okay. I'm here,
he called as he began delving through the pile of loose stone and brick. A hand appeared, then an arm. The crying continued, louder now. A nearby firefighter had noticed his efforts and rushed to join him. Eventually, they managed to pull the remaining debris away from the battered and broken man that lay beneath. The firefighter called out.
Can I get a medic over here, Stack?
And almost immediately, Hal was pushed away as the medics arrived to attend to the wounded man. Hal stood, dazed again, sweat pouring from his brow. He uttered to himself, "How the hell can anyone deliver such evil?" And to his surprise, someone answered.
The problem is not that there is evil in the galaxy. The problem is that there is good. Because otherwise, who would care?
Hal turned to see the officer standing next to him. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
Oh, I imagine so. You were quite busy over there, it seems.
Why, who? Said Hal, despite knowing the answers.
The why is all around you. It's certainly gathered some attention, and the who is littered over every street in this district.
Stupid bastards. Still, I'm surprised by this level of destruction. Maybe it wasn't meant to be like this.
Yeah, things of consequence rarely happen by accident.
Hal briefly studied the man next to him and wondered just how official this officer was. You didn't happen to notice?
Yeah, when we arrived, there were 3 men. Not your normal sorts. Looked rougher, these ones. Larger. Traders, if you know what I mean.
Hal's frown deepened with intrigue. I do. System, Sol. Location, shipping lane. Distance to Europa, 1800 light seconds. The glistening, azure blue crate phantom, known as the Bunty, pierced its way through the blurry tunnel of hyperspace before being ejected into the blinding face of the sun. And after a short U-turn, it continued its journey in supercruise. Apollo fiddled with the nav panel and set the auto-assist on Europa before joyfully swiveling around in his chair.
Come on, Tin. What's up now?
Oh, well, I was just thinking, yeah? Can't this ship go any faster by now? I thought you sorted that all out.
Yeah, I said I will sort it out. Eventually. Took us long enough to save up for these sodding 6A thrusters, didn't it?
Emo grunted.
Yeah, exactly, Emo. And we certainly don't have the resources for any engineering, do we? We need to dedicate some time to grinding those materials. Then we can put some drag drives on those babies.
Can't be far off, surely.
Yeah.
What is it we need anyway?
Well, firstly we need to pick up a few more mechanical components. Then we need to grind for a shit ton of chromium. And then we can visit moody old Felicity Farsia over in the Deciat system. And that's only for grade 3. If you want 5, then we'll have to go visit Mel up in bloody Colonia.
No way, sunshine. We're not doing that pissing journey again.
Suddenly, the ship jolted and vibrated violently as an alert message sounded. Apollo turned back to the controls, his heart pounding in his chest.
Shit, we're being interdicted.
Oh no, what the hell? Can you lose
I
them?
can't pull her around fast enough. Damn, this guy's good.
Another violent shudder rocked the ship's foundations as they were thrust out of supercruise, the view in front of them spinning with dizzying velocity. Another message came through, this one far more worrying.
They're locked on.
Oh, shit. Brace for impact, Emo,
said Tin, but nothing happened. Instead, a direct comms link lit up the panel. The voice that came through was instantly recognized.
Hello again, boys. Looks like I got the better of you once again.
Apollo did not answer. He simply shook his head as he glanced back toward Tin and Emo. Quaid continued.
Sounds like you're a bit sore about it all, eh? Well, not to worry. Listen, unless you want me to blow your stupidly named ship away right now, you'll be good little boys and let me come aboard here. Wonderful. I'll see you in a bit,
said Quaid, ending the direct comms link with his final word. Tin grabbed hold of his chair with such fury that the fabric threatened to rip apart beneath him. Apollo's head shook with anger as he released the name of his nemesis.
Quaid!
And Emo grunted. System, Sol. Location, shipping lane. Distance to Europa, 1800 light seconds. Quaid emerged triumphantly from the airlock and was promptly greeted by a selection of stern and unpleasant faces, each containing a mixture of anger, fear, and annoyance. The atmosphere on board was as cold as the short trip over here. His jetpack remained relatively warm from the crossing between one ship and the other.
Hello, boys,
said Quaid, holding up a small object in his left hand. No response came.
I knew it. I just bloody knew it. I had a hunch and I acted upon it. You see this tiny little thing here? It's a tracking device. I planted it on your ship just before we left Mars. I just thought to myself, that cheeky little bastard would have some tricks up his sleeves. How is he anyway, your friend? He didn't look too good, did he?
Apollo grimaced.
What do you want, Quaid?
First things first, my dear boy,
said Quaid, nodding to his bulky companion.
My man here is just gonna go visit the little boy's room, okay?
And with that, the man disappeared into the depths of the ship.
So, what now?
Said Apollo. But before Quaid could answer, Tin released an outburst of pent-up fury.
Listen, yeah? Why don't you just bloody piss off before you find yourself in some real danger, eh?
Emo grunted with no distinct change than his usual grunt, but those that knew him could decipher that this was one of unified venom and violence.
Alright, easy guys,
said Apollo, holding an arm out in front of both Tin and Emo.
Looks like we've got ourselves a fighter here, eh?
Tin stepped forward, his face exploding with anger.
I'll give you a pissing fight.
Tin's voice was promptly cut short by an aggressive move from Quaid. One that took them all by surprise, yet one that was filled with definitive meaning, one of promised violence. Quaid's voice somehow managed to portray both calmness and malevolence as he spoke. His aggressive words, though, very much betrayed the fact that he was a man of little time. And as the cold steel barrel of an ancient .45 revolver rested against Tin's forehead, he said,
"Don't play with me now, boys. I have no patience for any of this today."
Alright, calm down now, Quaid. We can...
Don't tell me to calm down, Apollo. Don't tell me to do anything. I give the orders here.
Alright, what do you want?
The second part of the map.
We don't have it. We don't have
I
it.
said don't play with me, boy.
We don't have it. I promise.
Where is it then?
The storage containers. On Mars. We went to...
That was you.
No, it wasn't us. That's what I'm telling you. The second part of the map was in the storage container unit. It was leveled by the explosion. The bloody building fell on it.
So what? You're just flying blind, are you? Answer me, boy, or I'll blow his sodding head off.
We know as much as you do, Quaid. You have the first part. All I have is...
What? What have you got? Don't push me too far, Apollo. I'm seconds away from pulling this damn trigger and wasting this fella.
Now look, hold on, okay?
Tin swallowed hard as sweat began to trickle down his forehead. In the background, slowly, Emo took a sidestep, small enough to barely be noticed, large enough that in a few steps more, he could grab his own weapon. Knowledge
is what I have, right? And with your part of the map, we can figure this out together.
What's that?
It's
that pretty thing around your neck.
It's nothing.
You keep touching it. It doesn't seem like nothing to me. I don't recall you having that particular item of decoration last time we met.
Killian gave it to me. It's just...
You're not holding out to me now, are you, boy?
No, just listen, Quaid. This is all we have. It's an image of Titan. Look at it. The green ball, it's methane. The atmosphere. It's an old artifact, for Christ's sakes. It makes sense. It must be that. Now, with your map, we can figure this out together. That's why we're heading to Titan right now.
Tin's breathing became audible, for he had noticed something that Quaid had not, something that filled him with pleasure and also fear. Emo had taken another step.
Titan, eh?
Yeah.
Whereabouts on Titan?
I don't know. That's obviously what the map was for. It's a 3-part puzzle. I have the location. You have the whereabouts, and the second part of the map contains who knows what. The exact coordinates, some code or riddle, I don't know. But together, we can find it all.
Together, eh?
Emo took his final step. Now all that remained was to pick up the Karma P-15, but Quaid still held the muzzle of his revolver against Tin's head. The timing had to be perfect.
Tell me, boy, have you ever been to the other side of the galaxy?
Apollo shook his head as he stepped backward, knowing that Tin always kept a blade under his chair, his mind now too racing to find a violent answer to this encounter.
No.
Quaid's hand tightened around the revolver, his finger readied.
I knew a guy once, traveled out there. To Beagle Point, I mean. Took a couple of months, I believe, with the stops and all that.
Probably did a bit of sightseeing. Studied a few fungies, you know. He got there, though. At least I think he did. But what they don't tell you about such journeys is the loneliness, the isolation. The blackness outside starts to creep in through your eyes and infect your very soul. The echoes of your own voice are all you have, but they're lost out there too, those echoes of solitude. Danger can come in any form. A loose bolt head, a crack in your shield, an unexpected collision, and that danger changes a man. That sort of emotional pain changes a man until you crack, and you become a shell, a broken shadow of your former self. You ever felt anything like that, Apollo?
Quaid.
Apollo shook his head as he slowly sat down in Tin's chair. Emo's body tensed with anxiety. Tin could only hold on as the sweat from his forehead traversed the cold barrel of Quaid's gun.
What about you, boy?
Said Quaid, turning his head to face Tin directly.
Have you ever felt anything like that?
Suddenly, Quaid's companion burst into the cockpit.
Oh, damn, boss.
Marvelous, said Quaid, dropping the revolver and stepping backwards towards the airlock.
We'll be off for now then, boys.
Tin, Emo, and Apollo breathed a sigh of relief. The air was audibly stammered by the aggressive beating of their hearts. Nobody wanted bloodshed. Well, maybe Tin did, just a little, but that would not happen today. Now Quaid jested.
I'm sorry to say, boys, that I've got everything I need from you. It's been a good race, but it looks like I'm gonna win again, eh? Nah, I would say don't follow us, but there's no need because my friend here has just overcharged your power unit.
Quaid stepped into the airlock, his hands hovering over the door controls.
I suspect you'll have a few minutes to talk about things before your air runs out. Or maybe you'll succumb to the cold. But either way, I should also tell you that my other friend on board the lovely Python over there has already contacted the local security forces with your ship's ID and present location. So hey, heads up. You might be saved after all, eh? Maybe you can thank me later. Anyways, I'll be seeing ya.
And with that, the airlock burst into a mist that was soon pulled out into the darkness beyond and consumed in the vacuum, until nothing remained and the doors closed shut. The crew watched as the Python left them and turned its nose toward Titan. Apollo briefly examined the cockpit.
We have minimal power left. I'm surprised the bloody airlock closed.
Tin rubbed at the circular dent that still remained on his forehead.
Bugger it. Can you fix it, Emo?
Emo grunted and promptly disappeared.
Well, I do hope that was a positive grunt.
Hey, you never can tell these days.
Ugh, that pissing guy, Apollo. I swear one of these days.
Yeah, you and me both, Tin. But for now, we've got more pressing issues. I mean, even if Emo does get the power back on, we've got security heading our way fast. I don't know how we're gonna get out of this one, buddy.
And in the grim darkness and expansive loneliness of space, a minuscule metal object floated aimlessly, its fate unknown, its crew suffocating, and its presence soon to be discovered. Hal Selvin had only moments before left the chaotic surface of Mars when the message came through. A distress signal had been picked up, but this was not for the caller. Instead, it was for another doomed pilot. But this message was different, distressed or not, for it relayed the whereabouts of known criminals. The response from the local security forces confirmed the ship's ID and promptly relayed an all-points bulletin for any nearby ships to investigate. The name of the targets lit Hal's face with a smile. He was close, and he was already heading in the general area, so he could surely be there before any responders. This was a hand he did not see coming, a twist of fate that seemed too good to be true, but it was one that he would surely capitalize on. Quickly, he shifted the Challenger's directional thrusters and applied full throttle, his eyes fixated on the empty blackness in front of him. Inside the Bunty, the air was growing colder by the second, but that very same air was also depleting as quickly as the temperature changed. Emo was somewhere in the bowels of the ship. The occasional clattering of various tools and electrical charges could be heard from time to time. Tin and Apollo could only wait, feeling helpless, feeling envious of those that had put them in this situation, and feeling anxious of whatever may come next.
Looks like this could be it then, Sunshine.
Always the optimist, eh?
You holding out much hope, are you?
Emo will sort it. He always does. I've never known a job Emo can't do, and I've known him for a long time.
Yeah. You two go way back, don't ya?
Feels like that with you too. Thought you were only going to be with us for that one job.
Yeah, well, me too. And I was planning on stealing it all the whole time I was running with you too.
Oh yeah? Why didn't you?
I don't know. I guess I kind of like the camaraderie, you know? Well, that ain't the most thrilling conversation. Well, at least we sent that bastard Quaid in the other direction, eh?
Yeah. He's going to be chasing his tail for some time, I reckon. Man, he's going to be pissed when he finds out.
That's another one right there. Seems like you've been butting heads with this guy as long as I've known you.
Longer than that, my friend. Believe it or not, I owe everything to that man. He pulled me off the streets, gave me a home. I ran with his crew for a few years, till I was old enough to go on my own.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. Seems like forever ago.
So, what happened between you guys then?
That's a story for another time. Right now, we need to hope that things work out here. Save our breath.
I mean, don't forget, even if Emo does sort it all out, or even if the forces arrive here first, don't forget we all have bounties on our heads.
Well,
they'll probably just shoot first, get their promotions, collect their payments, and ask questions later.
Yeah. You're right there. Come on, Emo.
And as if on cue, Emo appeared at the doorway, his face and hands stained and smeared with grease, oil, and a few bloody scratches. He pointed towards the forward control panel and released a nondescript, yet rather prolonged grunt. Apollo turned to face the panel, his face lit up with an orange glow, as the ship stuttered and came back to life.
Oh, yes, Emo. I knew it.
Oh, blimey. Great job, Sunshine. I never doubted ya.
Apollo and Tin shared a glance as Apollo smirked and nodded his head at the comment.
Come on, guys. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah, mates. Europa, here we come.
And with a palpable excitement and relief that threatened to overload their bodies, they failed to notice the blip that had appeared on the distant outer ring of their ship's scanner. A blip that signified that someone had just dropped out of supercruise directly upon their location. Hal's ship shuddered as it came to a slow stop. He could see Apollo's Phantom in the far distance, but this ship was not the floating wreck it was supposed to be. Maybe it had been, for long enough that he could finally be within touching distance, but as of now it was back up and running. He could have intercepted, he could have relayed visual contact and called for backup, but he did neither of those things. Instead, he quickly flicked a switch and put his ship into silent running. Instead, he chose to follow his prey, for it would be easier to detain them on the ground, in person, once and for all. And as the Phantom's engine sparked back into life, Hal readied himself to continue the hunt. The end game was now in sight. Majoro Entertainment Complex, Moon, Europa, System, Sol. The Bunty gently descended over the entertainment complex that was to be their rendezvous point, and as it did so, Tin, beneath a heavy frown, cast a rather skeptic eye over the establishment.
Jesus Christ, what the hell is this place, Apollo?
It's quite a popular holiday destination, actually, Tin. Winter sports and all that.
What's that? Skiing and sliding and all that nonsense?
Yeah, you should try it sometime.
What, bloody skiing?
No, having fun.
Ha! I get plenty of fun, Sunshine. Don't you worry about that.
Within minutes of the Bunty landing, the crew had made their way down the excessively long walkway and entered the colourful, neon-lit bar. The complex seemed relatively empty.
Maybe it's off-season, eh?
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe this place is shit.
How can I help you, gentlemen?
Said the bartender, his long fingers already reaching for tall glasses and cocktail umbrellas.
A couple of pints would be lovely, mate.
The bartender turned away with a grimace. He seemed visibly disappointed to be serving such bland drinks in such a place, and he returned the cocktail umbrellas to their holder. Above them all, another news flash took over the overhanging projection screens that adorned the small square island construction that formed the bar.
Informed that there have been recent reports that several locations in the Van Maanen star system have been raided, including the Sublime Order headquarters. But as yet, no sign of a suspected terrorist. Several members of the Order have been taken into custody and questioned, with all stating that they have nothing to do with the unnamed leader of what they call a separatist terror cell. As of now, the hunt for this man continues. In other news, the local farmball league...
The men sat down at a corner table, their eyes constantly shifting, always scanning for anyone they may have upset in the past, or any member of authority they may have already crossed in a prior adventure. They saw neither.
So, do you like all this stuff then, Al? Rather partial to skiing, are you?
Apollo decided to relax, at least for a moment.
Not really, but I find it beneficial to keep an interest in all things. You never know who you can get talking to, and how they can help you out in the future.
Yeah. What are you getting at, Al?
Said Emo with decided interest.
Well, you see, the reason we landed here is because I know a guy who can help us out. He doesn't live here, he's based over in Haberland Survey. But we crossed paths once when I decided to get some skiing lessons.
You what?
Listen, it's a valuable skill to have. You never know when you're going to need it.
Right, okay. So what's this guy got for us then?
Well, due to his profession in the surveying business, his company own, or rather they did own, a rather nifty little submersible and some personal underwater breathing apparatus that we can borrow.
Oh, I see. Okay then. And why are we at this delightful establishment?
Well, the reason we're meeting here is because it's neutral ground for him. Obviously, he doesn't want to be trading with us over at the survey, does he? And this place is as good as any for a nondescript meeting of potential shadiness.
Trading, you say?
Well, I had to make it worth his while, didn't I? I mean, like I said, I don't really know the guy too well, but I made him a decent offer. Don't worry, it's not out of the joint pot, it's my personal credits.
Aha. Well, that's just dandy then. Why didn't you just start off with that, eh?
Yeah, I know, Emo. I haven't quite worked out the location yet.
Said Apollo, looking down at his pendant.
Yeah, I haven't figured that out either, okay? I mean, what the hell does that mean to you? Beneath the scars the bubble lies, beware to pierce with these 3 eyes. Absolute nonsense is what it is. I hate riddles.
And as the gentlemen became lost in thought and banter, they had all failed to notice the man that had approached their table. The man briefly hesitated, not wanting to break their stride, but then said,
Apollo.
Apollo's head snapped toward the visitor, and his hand immediately reached for his holstered weapon as fright filled his soul. How could he have been trapped so easily? But his senses were soon relieved when he recognized the face.
Oh, crikey. Sorry about that, Will. You snuck up on us there.
The man looked over his shoulder before whispering,
Sorry, I got the goods out back.
Ah, perfect. All good to go then.
Said Apollo, prompting his crew to finish their drinks.
My name's Tin, and this is Emo. Good to meet you,
Will. My name's Will Turner.
Right, I see. The legendary engineer, aren't you?
Oh, heavens no, that's my brother Bill.
Right. But William's usually shortened to Bill, isn't it?
Yeah, I've never quite known why. But anyway, he's Bill, and I'm Will.
Right then. Will.
Will stood patiently for a while before asking,
So, what is it you're looking for?
Oh, we can't say, I'm afraid.
No, it's top secret government business.
Yeah, something like that.
A magical place under the sea.
Yeah, okay, Tin, that's enough, please.
Oh yeah, right. Top secret and all that.
William took the hint, but felt compelled to offer some advice.
Listen, if you're looking for something weird, you might like to know that we've been surveying this place for some time now. Somehow, a stroke of luck, I guess, we picked up these very strange signals from deep under the ice. We were going to send some people down there,
but things cost money, and that takes a while, you know.
Huh, that is interesting. When was this?
Oh, about a year ago now. We're still monitoring it from the surface, but as yet nobody's been down there. Well, maybe, funnily enough. That could be exactly what we're after.
Tin?
Sorry!
So whereabouts is this anomaly then?
Oh, it's quite a ways away, nigh on the other side of the moon. But I know the coordinates if you want them. The submersible was significantly heavier than expected, and even though it had been wheeled off the back of William's ship and lifted into the cargo bay of the Bunty, mainly due to the sheer strength of Emo, it was still debatable how they were going to get the thing back up once deployed. But that was a problem for the future. Right now, they were heading to the given coordinates. William suspected that the signals had penetrated the ice due to the area falling victim of recent geological shifting. The cracks in the ice here were fresher than most, deeper than many, and relatively weak in terms of thickness. The Bunty came to a hover amidst the erupting geysers that lined the nearby surface. The water vapors rose in a tantalizing display of glistening beads that drifted away aimlessly into the darkness beyond. Okay then, Sunshine. What's the plan again? Because, just for the record, this seems crazy to me.
Oh, it's crazy for sure, but I can't think of any other way.
So we just shoot a bloody hole in the ice?
We have enough dumbfire missiles to blast a hole right through. How else are we going to do it?
But won't it just heal over again immediately, given that we're in space and all that?
Most likely, but the heat will keep it open for a while. And don't forget, we're programming the missiles for the same time as we drop, so we should be hitting straight after.
Right. So we all sit in that small tin can and drop from the cargo bay, while simultaneously firing several missiles at the crack in the surface, and hope that it all times so perfectly that the missiles hit just before we arrive and fall through the hole into the sodding water.
That is exactly right,
said Apollo, shifting his crew out of the cockpit and toward the cargo bay.
No bloody way, Sunshine. This is bloody ludicrous is what it is. Yeah, exactly, Emo. Have you thought of that, Al, huh? We're not going to fall very fast on Europa with only bloody 0.13 G.
Even as they bickered, the crew, on autopilot, had begun to change into their Artemis spacesuits as they stood next to the submarine.
Don't worry about that. I've done the calculations. It'll be fine. Maybe.
Jesus pissing Christ.
Look, just shut your moaning, Tin, and let's get to it. William already told us that his survey team have been peeling away the layers at this site for nearly a year. Okay? They're constantly monitoring it. There's probably already dangerously thin ice down there. Just frozen enough that they can still walk over it and operate their sampling devices. And look, Emo's raring to go.
Tin submissively dropped his shoulders with a heavy sigh. Ugh. And with that, the crew entered the submersible and Apollo readied for launch. Within the blurred and misty landscape of the distant horizon, hovering just above the surface, eyes were watching. Eyes that had been laser-focused upon their target since he had finally caught up with them after Mars. Hal Selvin tingled with excitement as he stalked his prey, always in the vapors, always just out of sight, yet always within pouncing proximity. Silently, albeit rather confused, he waited, he watched, and he readied for what may come next. Only this time, he was not alone. In the cramped confines of the submersible, the trio sat, all leaning against each other, all incredibly uncomfortable, and all filled with utter dread and anxiety of what was about to happen.
Okay,
said Apollo, fiddling with the dials and controls of his suit's arm-mounted computer.
Everyone ready?
No.
Okay. Let's do it.
And with that, Apollo activated the chain reaction that would with utmost hope and considerable luck lead them to penetrating the moon of Europa. A bone-shuddering metallic clunk rocked the submersible as the cargo doors opened, and the small cylindrical tube began to fall through the cold, thin atmosphere, slowly at first, but gathering speed. What seemed like only moments later, a volley of explosions followed, each one signifying another successfully launched missile, each one increasing the amount of perspiration that seemed to now flow freely down their bodies. An eerie moment of silence followed as each member of the submersible prayed to their respectful gods before their world was once again rocked by several more explosions. These, much louder than before, as the missiles impacted the surface and blew a hole right through the ice. The shockwave violently enveloped the submarine like turbulence on a plane, while the water below furiously bubbled and immediately began to set in the below freezing temperatures. But just before it did so, and only moments before Tin would have lost control of his bowels, the submersible hit the slush. The crushing impact felt like it broke every bone in their bodies as they were flung around in their seats.
Taking damage.
The ice scratching against the metal walls of the submarine was spine-tinglingly loud and progressively filled their souls with impending doom, their hearts threatening to break free from their chest plates in order to escape their bodies. But then, silence. As their ears adjusted to this new serene volume, the unmistakable sound of falling through water could be heard. Distant calls of an unknown species, the close proximity of rupturing bubbles, and the pleasing sound of their hearts growing softer. They had successfully entered the hidden waters of Europa's Great Ocean. Apollo quickly activated his suit's computer and dismissed the Phantom. It would be safer in orbit. And only now did they dare to turn on the external viewing camera, and as the screen flickered into life, the image before them was one of total blackness. No seabed could be seen from this depth, only the occasional specks of dust and microorganisms floating by. The darkness held a purity that was only matched by space itself. But this space contained a treasure, a very distant and almost imperceptible glow coming from the lower depths, several leagues below them. No one said a word, but a mutual admiration and awe filled the cabin as Tin grabbed hold of the controls and tilted the nose downward. Whatever it was that was glowing was the light that drew them closer, deeper. Whatever it was that was down there was surely where they needed to be. And whatever it was that was down there was now waiting for them.
Moon, Europa. System, Sol. Location unknown. Far below the frozen surface, the crew descended silently into the depths of Europa's Great Ocean. The outside world, murky and cold, passed them by like a trance. The occasional specks of dust and microorganisms, once lit by the submersible's headlights, took the form of sparkling diamonds, floating aimlessly in a sea of darkness. The journey was traveled in relative silence, with the three men in complete and utter awe of what they saw before them, the mystery of their destination, the allure of the glowing object somewhere down there in the deep. The silence was broken every now and then by the distant and somehow overwhelmingly calm sounds of submersed alien life forms.
Wow, this is amazing,
said Tin, in a manner that seemed wholly uncharacteristic for him.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
The seabed was relatively shallow given the expanse of ocean, and the potential depths that undoubtedly lay out there, and the dive took less than an hour. For the crew, it seemed like mere minutes filled with emotional ecstasy. Suddenly, the view before them changed. The darkness began to fade into muted colors. The haze began to take shape and form. The world around them had turned from nothingness into something. And that something was more exciting than anything they had ever dreamed of. For men who lived life in the fast lane, who made fast money and danced with danger, the slow descent was by far the most exhilarating experience of them all. They were not as strange to archaeological findings. They had searched for and found many hidden treasures around the galaxy, be it modern or ancient, personal belongings to be stolen, or items from ancient civilizations to be acquired.
Only recently had they raided the newly discovered temple on the Terracotta Plateau. But this was a discovery like no other. A sight no man had ever seen before. A place no human had traversed. This went way, way above the coveted first footfall recognition. This was legendary. The seabed began to take shape. The murky waters became clearer. The soft brownish land was littered with green life, reeds and weeds of all shapes and sizes. Areas of what could only be described as long grass, and amidst it all were the decaying ruins of a once great city. White stone walls, the foundations of houses, great palaces, arenas, places of worship, and humble abodes. Their imaginations ran wild, simply casting their eyes upon the wonders before them. But the biggest wonder of all lay directly at the center, a place untarnished by the currents of time, unwithered by the pressures of the deep, and unharmed by the bitter climate. The dome at the center, its glow now strong enough to light the ruins that surrounded it. Apollo briefly pondered its size, at least 5 or 6 stories in height, and its perimeter, large enough to house any sports stadium. Tin slowed the submersible and gently handled the controls to achieve a soft landing on the seabed. But the speed had carried a little too much, and the submarine penetrated the dome before coming to rest. The crew held their breath in expectation, but nothing happened. The submarine now lay half in and half out, the thin layer of the dome perfectly formed around them, creating an airtight seal that let no water in. The view was now one of perfect clarity.
Bloody hell, it's air. There's no water in here.
How the pissing hell can that happen?
I don't know, Tin, but this is... Exactly, Emo. Some kind of air bubble. I don't know how, but that's what it is.
Well, bloody fortunate I managed to get the sub in then, right?
Oh, sure, like you meant to do that, did you?
Of course I did. Look, the hatch is in the bubble. Now we can get in without getting wet, see?
Right, okay, Tin.
But no movement followed. They simply continued to stare. A moment of hesitation that may have been misconstrued as being safe, keeping an eye out for any dangers before leaving the relative safety of the submersible. But in reality, they were all scared shitless. Eventually, Apollo broke the stunted silence.
Right, come on then. Let's get out there.
Right, yeah, of course. Just
what?
You go first, yeah?
Right, okay then. Come on, Emo, get the hatch.
Emo gripped the hatch wheel with his enormously oversized hands and twisted it open. As he did so, a small collection of water fell into the sub and covered the gentle giant. Emo turned and glared at Tin with eyes that very almost showed an emotion.
Right, okay, I'm sorry. But we all expected that to happen, Emo. Well, come on then, Apollo. Off you trot.
Yeah, I'm going. It smells a little funny out there, doesn't it?
Yeah, smells a bit funky, doesn't it?
Right, have you both got your breathing apparatus, just in case?
Of course we do, Sunshine. Never took it out of my bloody pack, did I?
Right then, let's go.
And with that, Apollo lifted himself up and clambered out of the submarine. Within minutes, the trio stood next to each other, and within seconds, their jaws hung low and open. The domed city of ruined stone sprawled out in all directions, filling the circumference of the dome's protections, and spreading out further beyond and into the distance. In the dark blue of the outside ocean, clearly visible through the transparent skin of the dome, life forms could be seen, most small, some incredibly large, their voices muted and muffled.
Wow. This place.
Words were simply not enough to describe what they were experiencing, and every sentence ended just as quickly as it started. Their voices, as with all sounds in this mystical underwater temple, held a similar echo and reverb to that of a grand cathedral. The glow seemed to penetrate stronger from the outside. The inside held a strange, all-encompassing light, as if daylight itself was upon them. Slowly, taking in the wonder around them, they walked forward, through and past the crumbling white ruins, each one covered in moist green algae. The humidity inside the dome was palpable, and distant drops of water could be heard, moisture dripping onto moss and forming small puddles between the rubble.
What the hell happened here?
Whatever it was, I bet it was long before humans came to be. This place is ancient.
Now they stopped before the magnificent centerpiece. The structure itself looked in many ways similar to an old Greek pantheon. This building, however, seemed untouched by the ravages of whatever war or disaster had struck this place down and razed its city to the ground. This pantheon stood tall. Its white marble pyramidic roofing and Corinthian-style pillars shone brightly, as if the gods themselves had poured their souls into its very architecture. Carefully they climbed the steps and entered the heavenly arena. But before them, amidst the flat plateau of marble, lay a single square hole, and within that hole, a set of stairs that led down to an unknown level. As they descended the cold, hard stairway, their eyes began to adjust to this inner lair. The brightness from outside, replaced by a somber, shadowy underworld. But this room held a glow of its own. It was only small in comparison to the grandeur of the temple, but the walls, flooring, and ceiling were of pure gold. Toward the far side of the room lay a shallow circular pool, only a meter or so deep and a meter or more wide. And that circle of water acted as a moat for what was positioned at its center, a golden plinth, and hovering ever so slightly above that plinth, by the force of some unknown magic, was the trident. The room echoed with every step, and light emanating from somewhere beneath the water radiated through the surface and danced upon the golden walls around them. If ever there was a heavenly throne room for which a god should take his residence, this was surely it.
Oh, that's it then,
said Tin, studying the mythical object. Apollo nodded, his eyes drawn by its beauty, transfixed by its apparent power.
Yeah, look at it. It's
probably worth a lot of money.
Apollo turned to Tin, Emo followed suit, and together, suddenly, they burst into laughter. Well, apart from Emo, of course, who merely performed an extended groan.
Yeah, probably.
It was a laughter that broke the tension, the wonder and the trance they had been in since arriving here. The trident was now before them, and they were finally close, so close to obtaining it.
Right then, I guess we just have to cross the water, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, go on then.
Huh? Why do I have to go first?
Well, just in case.
Oh, right, yeah. Just in case something happens. Oh, you bloody cowards. Fine, watch me then.
Tin began to walk towards the water, and was about to step in when suddenly the surface changed. A slight disturbance swirled, like a circular current had been activated underneath. Ripples began to spread across the moat, and bubbles began to form in a concentrated area. And from those bubbles, a shape began to emerge and grow. The water filled its outline, and the liquid formed a solid figure that rose to meet Tin's eye. Tin jumped backward.
What the pissing Christ is this?
The water swirled.
You flame shakta. What the bloody hell? What did he say?
Apollo shook his head with vigor.
I don't know. I don't speak water.
You are not Atlorian. No, mate. Yet you seek the trident.
Yes, we do. What are you, exactly?
I am an entity, like yourself, but I have no physical form. Water is my vessel. Ah, right. Well, glad we cleared that up then. I am bound by the Guardians of Atloria to protect the Power Staff until such time as my replacement comes.
You're a Guardian. I thought you were extinct.
I am no Guardian. I am merely bound by them as protector of the staff. Blimey. So they're still out there somewhere?
Yeah, we thought, those guys are ancient. Jeez, every pilot in this galaxy probably has some form of Guardian weaponry on their ship.
They are only where they need to be. And yes, it saddens them that you find use for their technology. They themselves no longer need such trivial things, for they ascend beyond all levels of comprehension.
So, what are you then?
I am an entity.
Yeah, but
there is no need for any further clarification. I am, and that is all.
Will you let us take the trident?
Are you sworn to protect it?
Look, son, we're just gonna take it, alright? And he stepped forward to enter the water.
Tin, no!
But as Tin's foot hung in midair, the water being simultaneously evaporated from one spot and reappeared in another, the force of its formation pushing Tin off balance.
Crikey, you! Right, that's it, sonny.
And with that, Tin swung at the being blocking his path, but his fist nearly travelled through its head, like punching a waterfall.
What the hell?
Apollo quickly raised his hands in an effort to de-escalate the situation.
Yes, we are. We will protect it.
The water entity once again evaporated and reappeared beside Apollo.
You mean to protect the staff?
Yes, we do. But not here. Look around. This place is ancient. It's not defended. And more humans will come. Are you not tired of this life, this dedication to a cause you don't know the meaning of?
The water being tilted its head, pondering the question.
We will take it to a place where no one can access it. No one can control it. That is why we are here.
You have no mark. You are not Guardian nor Athlorian. You...
Apollo subconsciously fingered the pendant around his neck as Killian's words suddenly repeated in his head.
You will know when to use it.
In one moment, Apollo removed the necklace, held up the pendant, and spoke using the water creature's words.
We, as immortals, will protect the Power Staff, and you shall let us pass, under Guardian instruction.
A brief moment of silence followed as the suspense within the golden chamber heightened. And then, the water being snatched the pendant from Apollo's hand and immediately deconstructed itself, the water falling down in a mighty splash that spread ripples throughout the moat's entirety. Another second followed before Tin broke the silence.
So, is that it then? Has he let us pass?
I think so.
Right. Okay then. Well, what are you waiting for, sunshine?
Apollo turned to face Tin.
Yeah, that's right. It's your turn to go first now, fella.
Apollo turned to face Emo.
Okay, I'll do it.
He eventually said, gingerly taking his first step into the warm water. And it was when he was halfway in that his body suddenly froze, his limbs unable to move, his mind seemingly being penetrated by another's thoughts. Tin stood upright.
Oh, are you okay, mate?
But Apollo could neither talk nor move. His mind was filling with words that were not his own.
Beneath the scars the bubble lies. Beware to pierce with those free eyes.
Oi, Apollo!
Apollo turned, able to use his body once more, his mind now crystal clear.
We broke through the scars on Europa's surface. We found the bubble that lies beneath the waves.
Tin looked increasingly worried by this random outcry.
Yeah, mate. But are you sure you're okay, though?
No, I don't think we can take the trident out of the dome. If we do, it will pierce it. Beware to pierce with those free eyes. The bubble will burst. No more air.
Ah, right, okay. I get it now. So what do we do then?
We'll figure it out later,
said Apollo, turning to step onto the inner island. He approached the plinth. The trident hummed before him as it hovered in midair. Slowly, carefully, almost hesitantly, he grabbed the magnificent item. Its weight was tremendous, shimmering with gold and encrusted with brilliant green emeralds. He could almost feel the power of the staff through his body, traversing his veins. But this and all other thoughts were quickly subsided by what they all heard next. Voices.
Might as well give in. You're done for.
Tin and Emo spun around as Apollo quickly splashed through the shallow water to join them.
Who the hell is that?
Oh, somebody must have followed us.
How?
I don't know. But we gotta get out of here, mates. And fast.
The trio departed the Golden Chamber with haste, quickly ascended the stairs, and then they froze. For as they stood, mighty and godlike amidst the Pantheon, below them, just before the stairs, stood a familiar face, and behind that familiar face stood a small army.
Never in my wildest dreams had I ever imagined it would happen in such a place. But I think we both knew this day would come.
Apollo hung his head low.
Hal.
Apollo?
Suddenly, a deep thunderous rumble began to reverberate around the dome. A few heads raised to inspect the fragile barrier that protected them from certain death.
How did you get here? How did you find us?
I have been tracking you for some time. Since Mars, in fact.
Since Mars? And you didn't care to help us when Quaid nearly killed us off.
You survived, didn't you? Anyways, by the time I got to your ship, you were just setting off again. If it wasn't for that call, I may not have found you at all.
Tin shook his head, still holding a heavy grudge against the rival traitor that left them to die a cold and silent death in space.
As for the how, well, as you can see, I have a lot more resources at my disposal than you have.
Apollo looked beyond the gathering of soldiers toward the large submarine at the dome's edge. It was clearly designed for this purpose, an all-terrain underwater submersible with solid chain tracks on both sides for traction and travel on the seabed. Apollo suspected it had to be the original vehicle that was to be used for the survey team that Will Turner had previously mentioned.
I see you have the Trident.
I do.
I must congratulate you and your crew, Apollo. I don't know how you do it, but you always seem to deliver.
A man stepped forward to stand slightly in front of the Interpol agent, a man who had clearly had enough of the small talk.
Give it to us now and we'll let you live.
Tin shrugged as he glared down toward the police chief.
Enough with the formalities then.
For once, we are not still in this thing, Hal. We need to take this to the Alliance.
I am the Alliance, an Interpol agent as you well know, and you'll excuse me if I don't quite trust you. I can take it from here.
The police chief released a wry laughter.
None of you are taking it for sod's sake. I'll be taking it into custody.
Hal spun around.
This is my case. You told me you would go along.
I told you what you wanted to hear. We're taking that Trident nice and clean, or we'll be killing every single one of them to get it. Either way is fine with us.
Apollo and Tin stepped back a little. The conversation was beginning to break down. Hal frowned, his face betraying the fury bubbling beneath the surface.
You can't do that. You're bound by Federation procedures. And
Look, pal, the Alliance, and especially no Ratcatcher, don't have any jurisdiction in this system.
I can act as an authority on any planetary soil. I don't have rank over planetary police, but you're not—
That don't mean sod all down here, pal.
So what? You're just going to murder them without trial?
Don't you get it by now, you fool? I'm not Federation. You really let yourself down as a detective agent, you know.
Well, what the hell are you then?
Ah, for God's sakes, do we have to spell it out for you? This whole time you were warned about the Achilles Corporation going after the Trident. Desperate to gain its power, we had undercover agents planted everywhere in this system. You remember the black cell that was tasked with obtaining it?
The man turned around to face his men.
Well, say hello to the Achilles Intelligence Group, pal.
The faux chief unholstered his weapon in a show of force, and immediately the crew reacted, running back toward the stairs. But as the bullets began flying, they quickly took cover behind the enormous Corinthian pillars.
Jesus Christ! What the hell are we gonna do, Al?
There's nothing we can do,
said Apollo, grabbing his weapon. The crew exchanged fire, but the small opposing army took no casualties, all behind the cover of the ruins. Hal Salvin could only watch as the army slowly gained ground, and Apollo's crew retreated further.
Get back! We've got to go!
Oh, where to?
Screamed Tin, as the trio departed the Pantheon from pillar to pillar and mazed their way through the crumbling ruins to the dome's edge.
Oh, this is pissing great. Now what? We're at the other end of a bloody dome, and a small sodding army between us and our sub.
The army slowly descended upon their position, spreading out to attempt a pincer maneuver. The chief called out,
You might as well give up, boys. You're done for.
Hal trailed behind them. He had not drawn his weapon. He hadn't needed to, nor had he wanted to.
Apollo, please. Just let them have the damn thing. Lay down your weapons.
A shot rang throughout the dome and ricocheted off the crumbling ruin before them.
Oh, this is it, Al. We're bloody done for.
Apollo said nothing, his mind racing.
I know, Emo, I know.
Oh, God, I can't believe it. Not like this, for shit's sake.
The foe chief called out again.
Enough time. We've surrounded you. Give us the trident or we'll finish this.
Apollo turned to his men. The look of peril in their eyes saddened him deeply. The journey they had been on raced through his mind. His friends needed him, but there were no guarantees. Not now. Not anymore.
I might have a plan, but it's risky. Very risky.
Another bullet embedded itself in the rubble.
That's it. We're coming.
The dome rumbled once more above them, threatening to collapse any minute.
Oh, shit. There's no way we're getting out of here alive. Come on, Al. What's this plan? What is it?
Apollo took a breath.
Okay, this is what we're going to do.
And as Apollo quickly informed his crew of the plan, and as Hal hopelessly watched on, the Achilles army closed in, their guns drawn, their intentions clear. Now, amidst the gunfire, Apollo and his crew ran one final time towards the dome's perimeter. They couldn't be surrounded from here, couldn't be flanked from the rear. Sporadically they turned and fired, each shot aimlessly launched, too high, too covered, too many. The dome continued to rumble, its supernatural sounds now amplified by the clatter of bullets and plasma bolts. It seemed remarkable that no one was hit, but panic blurred their vision, and adrenaline rushed their aiming. Still, they worked together, hoping to reach the dome and circle back round to their sub, from cover to cover, one ruin at a time. But amidst the flying bullets, the trio became separated. Apollo crouched behind a tall ruin as he watched Tin take cover behind the next building along. Emo ran frantically to catch up with them, but in the chaos, he tripped and fell. He briefly fumbled around in the dust and rubble before turning to face an opening, and within that opening, a hail of bullets sped toward him. Several shots rang through the air, and Emo, almost in slow motion, stumbled backwards, his body convulsing with impact after impact as he fell backwards and faded through the dome. Tin stood with wild fire in his eyes.
Emo! No, Emo!
He roared as he left his cover and launched into a desperate run to save his friend. Now it was Apollo, who could only watch as Tin ran directly into open fire.
Tin, no!
And Tin suffered a similar fate. A bullet ripped through his leg. A sputter of blood misted the air as several more bullets flew in Tin's direction until his body, like that of his friend, fell limply through the dome and into the cold ocean beyond. The gunshots ceased, and an eerie silence filled the dome as Apollo watched the bodies of his friends float away into the darkness beyond the dome. Suddenly, a cry filled the air.
Enough!
It was Hal, pleading for peace.
Apollo, please, please.
His words, and the actions that had led to this point, were devastating enough. Apollo lifted the trident above the ruined wall, and then slowly, he stood, his hands in the air, his head sunk low.
I surrender,
he said, and the army immediately surrounded him. The false chief recovered the trident with a devilish grin painted across his face. A soldier cuffed and detained Apollo as they began the long walk back to the submarine, and Hal, his shoulders low, his voice lower, offered his condolences with utmost sincerity. Three weeks later, High Court hearing, Columbus Station, Seoul. Within the intentionally old-fashioned and supremely somber hall of the High Court, a lone man stood before a sea of faces that all glared back at him, his face displaying a melancholy portrayal, one of a wild animal that had finally been caught and caged. A tall man in an extremely expensive suit approached him. The court fell silent. All ears were listening. "Can you state your name for the court, please?"
My name is Apollo Sky.
"You realize the gravity of why you are here today? What you are being accused of?"
I do,
said Apollo, briefly looking at his watch. "Have you someplace to be, Mr. Sky?" Apollo grinned.
Not yet.
"You don't seem to be taking this too seriously. Maybe I should remind you, multiple accounts of theft, breaking and entering, repeated evasion of the law, attempted murder of a police officer, destruction of property, manslaughter, and the attempted theft of a national treasure, an artifact belonging to the Federation. Not to mention, we have an Alliance officer accusing you of corporate espionage."
A national treasure you didn't know existed. Besides, most of what you just listed is nonsense.
I put it to you that not only are you guilty of these crimes, but also the deceased members of your crew, a Mr. Tin McTucker, and a man presumably going by the name of Emo. Not that these men will ever come to justice themselves, eh? Apollo merely returned the man's gaze. That is, of course, until the trident was brought into the courtroom. Apollo looked at the faces staring back at him, and sure enough, Hal Salvin was one of them. He merely offered Apollo a friendly wink. Somehow, that uptight bastard had outsmarted the Achilles Corporation and grabbed the trident for the Alliance. The lawyer sneered. "It's utterly useless. It holds no power at all."
Still, worth a pretty penny though, I imagine.
"Would you care to enlighten us on why?"
Because you pierced the bubble with its 3 eyes.
The man stared blankly back at him, and so Apollo continued.
It means that when the trident left the protective dome, not only did the dome itself collapse, but also the staff's power was rendered useless beyond it. The power you crave, the knowledge of how to wield such a weapon has been long forgotten. It belonged to an ancient species from an ancient time.
The trident was placed upon a table at the front of the courtroom, mere yards away from Apollo's reach. Apollo grinned slightly as he again looked down toward his watch.
Still, I'm glad you brought it in though. I was kind of hoping you would do that.
The lawyer turned to face the court, but before he could speak, Apollo stood and cut the man off.
"You're done talking now,"
the judge bellowed. "Order! Order in the courtroom! Sir, please sit down!" But Apollo ignored the judge.
"There will be order, there will be justice, but none of you lot will deliver it. That, good sirs, will be up to me."
Apollo jumped over the wooden panel that contained him. He glanced down one last time at his watch as the security guards moved in around him.
"Listen, this has all been a pleasure and all that, but I'm afraid it's time for me to bid you good people farewell."
Hal Salvin stood up, his voice raging over the crowd. "Apollo! What have you done, Apollo?" Apollo grinned from cheek to cheek.
"Not just me, Hal. You best take cover, mate. The chase is about to begin once more."
And with that, the courtroom doors burst open as a clatter of smoke grenades hit each corner of the room. A mask was flung toward Apollo, who caught it and put it on with haste as the tear gas began to billow. Panic filled the room, and through it all, amidst the smoke and chaos, the familiar silhouettes of 2 men appeared.
"Everybody on the pissing ground! Now! Nobody move!"
cried Tin, frantically waving his manticore tormentor.
Well, what the pissing bollocks are you waiting for, Al? Let's go!
Apollo grabbed the trident from the table and disappeared into the smoke. And just like that, as quickly as they had come, the trio were once again in the wind. By the time the smoke had cleared, and the temporary force barriers had been deactivated around the courtroom, Apollo and his crew had made their way through to the shipyard via the cargo bays, entered the crate Phantom, and thrust their way through the station's mail slot and out into the blackness before security could even be notified. On board the Bunty, now safely several systems away, Apollo was finally able to relax, his heart beginning to slow, the adrenaline wearing off.
Oh man, it's good to see you guys again. I was afraid you weren't going to show.
Of course we were going to show, you bloody idiot.
I mean, you know, in case you'd got caught or anything. I mean, I didn't even know the plan had worked, or that you'd bitten the bullet out there on Europa.
Nah, mate. I mean, Emo done it the right way. He had his breathing apparatus in his hand when he fell through the dome. I had to bloody fumble around in my backpack to get my one. Almost forgot to activate my bloody shield, which is why I took a bullet in the leg. It's okay though. It worked out, didn't it? Glad I got this new suit after all, I'll tell you that much.
And the sub?
Yeah, we met up outside the dome where we were sure we couldn't be seen. By the time we swam around the dome to the other side, all the guards were facing inward toward the temple. We just walked in and snuck inside the sub without anyone seeing us.
Damn. This has to go down in the history books.
I think it will, pal. I think it bloody well will. So where to next then, boss?
Apollo turned to face the black space before him. Each and every star burning bright, begging for attention, asking for adventure.
The next chapter is out there somewhere for us. We just gotta find it.
He said, activating the frameshift drive and ramming the throttle forward. Several days after the courtroom incident, a long and peculiar parcel arrived on Hal Selvin's desk. A moment passed as he considered opening it, but eventually he did, and what he saw filled his heart. He reached in and lifted the trident in the air. Money had been traded for a bargaining chip, or maybe it was just a gesture of goodwill. Either way, Hal looked out of his window and nodded gratefully to the sky. The Secret of Europa had been discovered, and the trident, now very much in the public eye, was safe and secure. But its power still lingered, hidden within the murky depths of history. A power that could still have been awoken if it were studied, if it were maybe in the right hands, maybe. Quaid would definitely welcome the monetary reward of such an item, but there was one other. A man that had the power and the resources to travel down that path. A man that was himself just as secretive as any elusive object from days gone by. And as he glared at the flickering screen in his dark room, the dull glow was just enough to shine light on the devilishly sinister grin that began to emerge. It was a grin that was indeed very sublime.